is also a global issue, of course. This is also a global issue. Extreme weather events are happening all around the world. Wet, dry, weather with flash going on. There's melting of glaciers and ice caps we're losing fresh water to the oceans, and higher temperatures increasing demand for oil. Of course, in California, let's talk about California. We're in a mega drought. We've had droughts in the past, but climate change, a study has shown that climate change is making these droughts more extreme by about 20% so far. That's the information. So we are in a drought now in the state. We have less Sierra and local snowpack. Snowpack has been our biggest reservoir of water in the past. The water is held in the wintertime as snow. It melts slowly in the past, and it fills our reservoirs in the spring and summer. We don't have that anymore. This past year, January, February, and March were the driest and the less snow we've ever had in California. So it's a serious issue. Now we're getting our primary precipitation by what's called atmospheric rivers, or some people used to call them pineapple expresses, where these infrequent, intensive storm events come through. They are mainly rain, and they dump large amounts in a short period of time, and of course they can cause flooding and landslides and other things. So if you look at California now, this is a picture, the most recent picture of the drought in California, and you can see that the entire state is in a severe drought situation, and in the Central Valley it's even worse. It's exceptional drought or extreme drought. So we are in a situation now, and it doesn't look optimistic for the near term for us to get out of the situation. Now the state has just come out last month with what's called California's Water Supply Strategy, adapting to a hotter, drier future. And I want to read the opening part of this. It says, over the next 20 years, California could lose 10% of its water supply. Our climate has changed, and the West continues to get hotter and drier. As it does, we will see, on the average, less snowfall, more evaporation, and greater consumption of water by vegetation, soil, and the atmosphere. So we're losing water supply, and that is because of climate change. So what is the state doing? There's 4 points they make in here. They have $8 billion they're dedicating to this. The first is to expand water storage both above and below ground, more recycled water facilities, funding those, more ocean and groundwater desal. And the final one down here is permanently eliminating waterways using water more efficiently. And that's what we're here tonight to talk about, how to save more water. So here in Redlands, you can see from this chart on the right, we've had a significant dip in precipitation over the last 20 years. In fact, there's less water for Redlands water treatment plants, which I'll talk about in a minute. Less surface water for groundwater recharging the groundwater basin. And our groundwater basin is currently at historic lows. Now there are plans that are addressing this. The city has some plans that have called a water shortage contingency plan. They've updated their water master plans. And of course they've hired conservation staff and have conservation programs here in the city. So I want to turn now, I want to mention though that Redlands is not running out of water. I want to be clear that that's the case, not right now. But we need to conserve to maintain what we have. So I'm going to move into be more specific about what's happening in Redlands and what Redlands water supply. I'm an engineer, so I like data, and I'm going to give you some things about where our water comes from, how much we use, how much you use individually, etc. So let's look at this. We're very fortunate to have a diversified portfolio of water. We have 4 water sources in Redlands. We have surface water from the Santa Ana River and Elk Creek. We have imported water that's available through the San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, Northern California water. We have a large groundwater basin to pump from called Bunker Hill Basin. This really is our primary source of reliability. And we have recycled water, which Fernando's going to be talking about. I want to point out that this picture here is one of the basins that my conservation district, I'm a board member. This is a basin that is filled with water, and you can see in the background, you can see the Seven Oaks Dam and the mountains. This water is put into the basin and slowly percolates. I'll talk a little bit more of that in a minute. So this is the groundwater basin. This is a photo of the groundwater basin. I'll just point out a couple things that orient you to the map. Here's the I-10 going across, the 210, 215 freeway over here. Here we are in Redlands. This basin is throughout the entire valley here is our basin. And what is a groundwater basin? Well, it's like a big bathtub. It's full of water. Hopefully it's full most of the time, but we pump out of that basin. City has wells and water districts throughout here have wells in that basin. They pull the water out. But the water needs to be put back in the basin too. And where does that happen? Well, that happens from these various streams that come out of the mountains. The largest one, however, is the Santa Ana River, which comes through here, and Mill Creek. And in this little area here, I want to show you an aerial view of some facilities that my water conservation district have to put water back in the ground. Here's Green Spot Road along here. Here's the Redlands Airport, San Bernardino Avenue. So we're the confluence of these two, and above this, we have a large amount of land, and we have in that land we dig big trenches or basins. We divert water as it comes out of the mountains into these basins, and we have to have a lot of storage area because the water comes fast sometimes. So we need a lot of land area. We need a lot of basin area. And the water goes into basins, like you saw in that last picture. It stays in the basin and slowly percolates into the ground. And that's how we recharge our groundwater basin, by taking water we have locally that comes out of the mountains when it's wet, when the snow melts, and we put it back in the basin. We also have the largest. Sorry. Clickers. Can't go back now. Oh, there it is. So we have basins also in the Mentone area here, and the largest basins we have here. We have plans to expand these basins so that we can recharge even more water.
So those currently exist?
Yes. We've been doing this for 100 years. The farmers in the past formed this district, and now we're a public agency. So let's talk a little bit more about specifics about these water sources. How much water do we get from each one of these sources? Well, groundwater is our primary source. 50 to 60% of the water comes from that. That's the big green area. When it's wetter, we can use less groundwater and more surface water. When it's drier, we use more groundwater than surface water, because surface water isn't available. We also have state project water, which is imported water from Northern California that supplements the supply, particularly in the summertime for Redlands, so they can keep their water treatment plants running. And we have recycled water, and that water use is going to be expanded. And again, Fernando will talk about that. Sorry, I'm going too fast here. So those are the sources. So how much do we use? Well, we use 18.5 million gallons a day. What does that mean? Well, that's 925 swimming pools that are filled every day from Redlands. That's how much water they have to produce to do that. That's a lot of water. We have a very reliable water supply. In the winter, it's less, and in the summer, it's more because of irrigation demands. And at the peak hour, the city needs to be able to provide about 3 times what they do on the average. So 925 swimming pools each day on the average. So to do that, they have to have a really robust water distribution system, and they do. millions of dollars worth of investment in facilities. Facilities such as water treatment plants, groundwater wells, reservoirs, 55 million gallons of storage, that's 3 times the amount of use on the average day, 44 booster pump stations, and a lot of pipelines. So we're fortunate to have a very robust distribution system to be able to do that. So who uses the most water in Redlands? Who do you think? Residents. We're primarily single-family dwelling units here. So 60% of the water in Redlands is used by single-family dwelling units, another 14 by multiple family dwelling units. Commercial, we don't have any real wet industries here, of course, so commercial and industrial is 12%, and large landscapes 13%. Things like the school playgrounds, the University of Redlands, the golf course, etc., those others. So most of our use is residential. And do you ever think about how much water you use for individual functions in your house? Inside water use accounts to about 30% of the water we use. We use 70% of the water outside. So that really creates the biggest opportunity for us to save more water, is outside, in irrigation, in conversions of landscape, in drought-tolerant plants, etc. And that's going to be our next seminar. We're going to talk to you exactly how to do that. But you look at this, the toilet flushing, showers, faucets, washing machines, they're all essential things, of course, we need. But they only use about 30% of the water, so 70% outside. This is a chart of Redlands water use overall. On the left-hand side, you can see Redlands, the bar is highest for Redlands on the left-hand side. This is what's called gallons per capita per day. You take the total amount of water that you produce, you divide it by your population, and you see how much water per capita. We can see here in Redlands, we use more than our neighbors, quite a bit more than Highland, San Bernardino, or Yucaipa. So there's opportunities here, I believe, for us to save more, and that's what we're talking about today. Now, this is probably should be familiar to most of you. It's our water bill, and I wanted to just talk to you about how there's good information on the water bill. First, on the right-hand side is the charges for the water. And I'd like to point out that there's only two, these in the box here are the only charges for your water. The rest are for other things. So when you consider this your water bill, it really is your city utilities bill. It's not just for water. Only 40% really of the bill is for water. This information here is the size of your meter. How much water you use is the difference in readings between previous and before. This is 18 units. These are funny units. They're called HCFs, 100 cubic feet. That's how the water is sold here. And that's equivalent to 740 gallons, so it's a lot of water. So how do they charge for water? Well, first there's a charge, a fixed service charge based on the size of your meter. Most of the meters are 1 inch or 3/4 inch, and that's a fixed charge. And that's for having all the facilities available to make sure when you turn on your water that you get what you, through that meter, the amount that meter can discharge into your system. So that's for that. All of these facilities, $1 million worth of things that I talked about in operation of those. The second part of it is an increasing block rate structure for how much you use. And that's the one down here. And that's the one where if you reduce your water use, you can save money. So you can see here that the lowest rate is $1.46, and then it goes up in increasing blocks. So for example, this one is 18, so that's two units above, so you can save 16 units times 146, and you have 2 units in the next classification, 2 times 178, and you get this number here. The more you use, the more you pay. So that's what I wanted to bring forth on this one. The next one on the other side is historical water use. Here's the gallons that were used over the last 60 days. These bills, of course, are 2-month bills. So this is historical information. This is how much you've used. This is June and May and June. This one is before that period where it's probably not as hot, so you don't use as much water outside. So you see that's much less. And then there's a graph of water up here, how much you've used. The black is what you're using currently. The other one shows you what you've used in the past. And then the city has some goals for water conservation. So there's good information on the water bill you can use to know how much water you use. But it is historical, it's looking back. So the city is considering putting in new meters, they call them smart meters, which have automatic readings. It's going to take a replacement program over a number of years. I think all the development has these smart meters, but they're able to read out in hours or in days, etc. And finally, for me, water meter. You can read your own water meter if you'd like to. This is a box where the water meter is located at my house, kind of hidden under some shrubs here. But if you flip that concrete cover, you see this. This is your water meter that's in there. It's kind of a yucky place. You've got to watch out for spiders if you put your hand in there or something. But you can see this meter, and you can actually read it yourself. It's an odometer. It's pretty easy to read. And if you have some trouble, Jasmine will come out and tell you how to read it. So, anyways, that's what you can do. One of the things you might want to do is see if you have any leaks, so you can check the reading at when you go to bed at night and there's no water use, and then do it first thing in the morning. You can see if you got any leaks, any changes in that meter indicating that. So you might have some leaks in your system. So that's it for me, and I'm going to turn it over now to Fernando, who's going to talk about recycled water and water energy next. Fernando.
Hello, everyone. So, City of Redlands recycle water and water energy nexus. So, what do I mean by that? Okay. Well, first off, show of hands says, how many people here know what recycled water is? Okay, good amount. All right, perfect. So, this will be eased all along. City of Redlands actually has led the industry on the West Coast in incorporating NBR technology. NBR stands for membrane bioreactor, and I'll get to that later. So that's what produces recycled water. So in the early 1990s, the city of Redlands decided to venture into avenues to conserve water, specifically groundwater, and try to get away from that. And I'm actually really impressed that that discussion started in the 1990s, because NBR technology was introduced to the States in the late 1980s, 1989 actually, to be exact. So whoever led that charge, hats off to that person. That was probably Dick. I think that you were part of MUED at the time. So conserving the precious groundwater was the main driver to go before the California Energy Commission in 2000. Quickly after that, by 2003, the recycling facility, or the wastewater treatment plant, was producing recycled water. Very impressive. 3 years' time is unheard of. So it's the reason why it was such a fast process was because of how the MBR facility can tie into any facility. So with City of Redlands, we're on a hybrid approach. We have a conventional activated sludge process, and we have a MBR facility, all within one plant. So what happens here is, okay, this is the raw water coming in. This is conventional. So let me back up. Conventional, I like to compare conventional and NBR to a old classic car versus a sports car. NBR being a sports car, conventional being a classic car. And I'll get into that in a bit. So it comes in raw water. The slide you presented, 30% of what the household uses, flushes down the toilet, showers with, comes to us. And this is a 30% plus other sources. So we screen it, we go through primary clarifiers, we go through an aeration basin, we go through a secondary clarifier, and then finally we discharge to those percolation ponds that Dick was explaining about. Recharge the groundwater, Bunker Hill. So this is strictly all gravity. And and detention time, and from this point to this point, 8 to 12 hours. So that's what makes it a slower process. We go to the MBR process. So similar, comes in, screening, aeration basins. Aeration basins are, it's a biological treatment where we use microorganisms to break down organic materials. And then this is where it separates. At this point, we send it to an MBR facility. And that facility is we use power, energy, to separate the solids from the liquid. And this phase right here, this was 8 to 12 hours. This is probably 2 to 4 hours for us to produce clean water. And that's where the supercar comes in. That's the Ferrari 458. We can do what this is 8 to 12 hours. We produce about 1 to 1.5 million gallons per day. We produce about 4 to 4.5 million gallons per day in that time frame, which is a 2 to 4 hour zone. So that's exactly why it's so easy to convert to the 3-year phase of how fast it was to convert to tertiary. Title 22 water happened because you can do it within the existing infrastructure. You just have to engineer a few basins. Not clicking. Okay, perfect. So where does our reclaimed water go? So our reclaimed water goes to one of our big users is the Mountain View Power Company, Edison, the generating plant over on San Bernardino, and they use that for cooling tower purposes. Dust control at the city's landfill, that's required per state guidelines. We also use the water within the treatment plant for pump seals and sprayers. And we also use it for agriculture, a few orchards around town, and landscaping, some warehouses over by the Mountain View, San Bernardino warehouses over on that, and that's all on recycled water. So actually right here is perfect. All this is recycled water, and this orange is the non-potable water, groundwater via wells. So, you've seen the purple pipes around the city, and does anybody know where the purple comes from? Okay, so Irvine Ranch Water District, they're the pioneers in recycled water. So they were actually the first agency to get permitted in actually the nation to produce recycled water. And they picked purple to distinguish the pipes from potable and non-potable. So everyone has standardized purple pipes now. So it's a local agency. We lean on Irvine a lot for guidance. They have an MBR facility. As a matter of fact, they have the same exact facility we have. However, we incorporated that facility before Irvine. We were the first ones on the West Coast, City of Redmond. So, as demand increases, storage will also need to be addressed. So we're currently engineering reservoirs to accommodate this increase in demand, supply and demand. So we anticipate our end users to increase here relatively in a short period of time, especially because water shortage is not a surprise. It's reality. So we are actually getting a lot more requests for recycled water. So with that, we need to start constructing these reservoirs to be able to supply that water at different pressure zones. More importantly, because we can do water in our immediate pressure zone, but once we start venturing into, say, the south side of Redmond, we need to increase those pressure zones via pumps, in turn have reservoirs. So we're currently in design for 2 1.5 million gallon reservoirs on site. We just received one of the tech memos, so we're reviewing that as we speak. So the future of wastewater treatment is resource recovery. One of the presenters here introduced us, and he wanted to know what water energy nexus is, and this is exactly what it is. So, what is water energy nexus? So, since our facility also processes organic waste, solids, and liquid waste, we take full advantage of this opportunity and convert the byproduct from the organic waste via digesters and we convert that to energy. So the city of Redlands has shifted their wastewater treatment plant mindset to resource recovery here within the last several years. Our team is focused on sustainability and energy management for the future geared towards a water resource recovery center. So what does all that mean? So our recent upgrades at the NBR facility and the solids handling facility have provided an opportunity to take full advantage of the water energy nexus. So these upgrades have paved an avenue to reduce energy consumption. We work closely with the manufacturer, which is Suez. They're a French company now bought out by Veolia, which is also French. And we work closely with them to optimize communications controls with these new scouring blowers within the NBR facility. We integrated these new blowers to modulate airflow based upon actual demands. So it's real-time demand. So there's a parameter called TMP, transmembrane pressure, within these modules. It's an ultra filter. So when solids accumulate on these filters, it's real time. It increases or decreases depending on the solids on these filters because we work with the manufacturer. And that's another hats off to Redlands. We work closely with them, and now they've incorporated that same technology and that same control strategy moving forward. This just happened 2 years ago. So that's hats off to us. And that was the incentive. We were able to save about $155,000 per year in energy costs. We put 1.5 million kilowatts per hour back into the grid, and we also got a $300,000 incentive because of that. So it's really good for the city. So also, and then another, I guess, venture we're moving towards is this energy optimization, energy efficiency through what we call, this is a natural gas conditioner at the facility. So this conditions gas. So it's driven by air quality requirements. We no longer are producing dirty air, but we decided to take full advantage of that and put it back into the system. This is a digester back here, and this is a boiler heat exchanger that heats up the digester in our facility. So because we condition that gas, it has a higher heating value. So we recirculate that biogas to this boiler heat exchanger, use it as a fuel source, and we no longer rely on natural gas. So we've got off the grid on natural gas now too. And that's it for me.
This is the star of our show, by the way.
Again, I'm Jasmine. I'm one of the water conservation specialists for the city of Redlands. So I'm going to talk a lot about how you can save water in your own homes, especially outside, and then also some rebates so that you can get money. You're like, I can't hear you. So that you can get money and get a credit on your water bill. That Richard is so eloquently talking about. So this is just a screenshot of a postcard that we have created. And if you want one, there's one on this back table over here. There's plenty for each and every one of you. And it has information on the watering days. So we do have water restrictions in the city of Redlands, and it's by your address. So if you have an even address, you're supposed to water Monday, Thursday, and Saturday only. And then if you have an odd address, meaning the last number in your address is odd, you're only supposed to water Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. And no one is supposed to be watering on Wednesdays. It's supposed to be No Water Wednesday. And no one is supposed to be watering between the hours of 12 and 8 p.m. Does anyone know why we don't want to be watering between the hours of 12 and 8 p.m.? No? Yeah, evaporation. So when the sun is highest in the sky and hottest, water actually evaporates quicker. And so you're really watering and giving it away to the sky, which is great, I guess, to some effect. But if you're paying for the water, you want to be utilizing it on your space, right? So if you're watering in the early morning hours or in the late evening hours, that's the best time to water. And so when I have this little caption box and it says water restrictions affect all outdoor water use. So sometimes we'll have residents calling and say, well, what about if I need to wash my car? We would prefer that you do it during your watering days. So any water usage should happen on your watering days that are assigned to you. And then if you ever have any issues with your timer, we can actually come out, which is that little controller, like the brain for your sprinkler system. You can schedule a visit. Myself and then another water conservation specialist, Myra, will come out and we'll go and adjust your timer, make sure that it's watering on the right days, during the right times, for the right amount of time. And then we can also come out to your residents and we can do a water audit. So if you realize that, your last bill and your new bill, there's $100 difference and you're not sure why, you haven't changed your usage, you can schedule a visit, we can come out and we can check your timer, we can, walk around your property, make sure that there aren't any leaks, and we can help you also figure out ways to save water around your home. Perhaps your toilet is leaking and you might not even know. So these are some of the rebates that City of Redlands offers. I'm going to try and use this little thing. So you can't see very well, but it's for the smart irrigation controller. So again, that's kind of the brain of your sprinkler system. We offer up to $150 rebate for the irrigation controllers, and they're usually between $60 and $200, depending on how fancy you want it. So we rebate up to $150 for an irrigation controller. So if you have an old one and it's time to upgrade, all you need to do is fill out an application, and I'm going to go over it in a little bit, but it looks like this, and again, I printed some, and there's some in the back, and we can also help you fill this out if you need help with that. And so we would also need a receipt for the irrigation controller, just to prove that you purchased a new one and how much it costs. And then we rebate for high efficiency sprinklers. So if you have old sprinkler heads that are leaking or broken sprinklers can waste a lot of water. You'll see them kind of shooting up like a water spout. So we rebate those at $4 per sprinkler head. And they're usually about $8, so we rebate about half of the cost. And then we rebate for high efficiency washing machines. Right now, our rebate is $100 per washing machine. I know that's not a ton because they're quite pricey, but it's something and it's a credit on your water bill. And then we rebate for toilets. So if you need a new toilet, they pretty much only make water efficient toilets nowadays, and we rebate $100 for the toilets. And we rebate per toilet. So if you need to change 4 toilets in your house, you get $400. A credit on your water bill. And then the two most important things to save water outdoors, which is what we really want to focus on today, like Richard mentioned, is landscape conversion. So taking out some of that water thirsty turf. So if you do the drought tolerant landscape conversion, which is this one, so if you decide to plant some beautiful lantana or some other California native plants and you put some mulch and some drip irrigation, that we rebate at 61 cents per square foot. So let's say you have, we'll go out and we'll do a pre-inspection, so we'll come measure the area of your yard that you're going to remove the turf from, and then we'll multiply the square footage by 61 cents, and we'll get a total. It does have a cap of $500. So right now, that's the cap, and I'll share a little bit more. So it's 61 cents per square foot for the drought tolerant landscape conversion, and it has that cap of $500. And then there's the synthetic turf or irrigation list, so zero irrigation ground cover. Some people really like to have the fake turf, the astroturf. They don't want to have any maintenance or any water, or they just want to put rock outside. That's, to each their own. So that conversion has that rebate is at $1 per square foot, and that one has a cap of $300. So it's a little bit less than the other conversion rebate, value per square footage is higher, but the cap is lower for some reason. This is before my time. But we are actually going to increase our rebates as of October 4th. So we just recently put a request to the city council. They're going to be reviewing it and putting a motion through on October 4th. But I've been told by my supervisor that I can share this, that most likely they will put it and pass it. And so as of October 4th, the drought tolerant landscape conversion and the synthetic turf rebate will both be at $1 per square foot, and they'll both have a cap of, I want to speak correctly, I want to say it's $1,000. So it's going to increase for the cap. And some of you who have larger yards, you know, it caps out pretty quickly by the square footage. So it's going to have a higher cap and a higher dollar value for the drought tolerant. And then we're also going to be increasing the rebate for the washing machine. It's going to go from $100 to $200. So we are going to have to change our budget a little bit, but we're going to be able to allow that so that we have more money set aside per individual, so that you guys can get a higher bang for your buck in rebate. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly go over the application just on the screen. Again, it looks kind of intense, but really you just fill out this top portion, which is like your address, your name, you know, general information, and then you fill out the section by item you are getting rebated. So the first one is a high efficiency toilet. If you did that, great, fill that out. If you didn't, you don't fill it out. And the next one is the synthetic turf or irrigationless conversion. So you would fill out that section if that's what you're doing. And the third section is the washing machine. I know you can't read it, but there's more back there. Just to go over quickly. And then we've got the weather-based irrigation controller, which has a rebate of $150. And then the high efficiency sprinklers and the drought tolerant plant conversion. So again, you just fill out the section that applies to what you're going to be doing at your household. And we'd be happy to go over the application process with you in person if you need anything. Just stop by the municipal utilities building. If you ever pay your bill in person, you can just go up to the customer service and say, hey, I need to talk to water conservation specialist, and they'll call me out. Alright, so how can you save water indoors? So Richard mentioned that it's about 30% of our water use is indoors. So ways that you can save. And so, you know, if you have young children or things like that, if someone's taking a bath, just fill in the bathtub pathway. That's super easy. Install aerators. If you don't know what an aerator is, it's just a small attachment that you put on your faucet, and instead of splashing out, it has a small screen, so it comes a little bit more bubbled or aerated, has more air in there. And so that can save quite a bit of water, and aerators are very cheap. So you can purchase that, you can save some water while you're washing your hands. And when we say we want to save water, nobody's telling you please stop washing hands or bathing. Of course, please do all of those things for your health. But there are ways that we can kind of cut and be more efficient, right? And so some people like to put like Home Depot buckets in their showers. They'll tell us, you know, we'll go out for a visit, and they're like, you know, we save water, we do all this stuff, and it amazes me. I don't do that. But some people like to save water that way, saving water from the shower, using it outdoors. Of course, turning off the water while you're brushing your teeth. We always tell kids this. If the toothbrush is in your mouth, the faucet can be turned off. It shouldn't be running. And then fixing leaks. And this might take a plumber unless you're handy, but really leaks can waste a lot of water, more than you realize. Gallons of water a day. So going around checking, listening to see if there's any water running. And then Richard mentioned if there's a time when you're outside the house, nobody's inside the house, or nobody's using the water in the house, and you go check the meter and it's still running, it's spinning, know there's a leak, and or when the round of checking is leak. And you'll hear toilets too, you'll hear toilet running, so that's something that you can check and change a plunger or something simple inside of the tank. And then you can install high efficiency toilets, and again, we have rebates for that. And we tell kids this too, taking 5-minute showers. What I like to do is play a couple songs on my phone, and if, past those couple songs, I try to, hurry it up and get out of there so I'm not wasting too much time in water. And then washing full loads of laundry. This seems like, of course, yes. So just making sure your washing machine's full, and you're not just washing a couple things and using too much water. Okay, so ways to save water outdoors. Using water-wise plants. And so ANCA will be hosting a workshop in October, and there's going to be more information on water-wise plants and transitioning your yard. But water-wise plants are usually from areas that have similar climates as we do, or they're actual California native plants. So they're used to being in our climate, they're used to droughts, they're used to long periods of time without water. And a lot of them are quite beautiful. Some people think, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of cactus and it's going to look like a desert. And really, there's a lot of beautiful wildflowers and shrubs and all different colors and textures. So take another look at water-wise plants. Reimagine your yard. Instead of having, giant swaths of grass, perhaps we can change and reimagine and maybe put some walkways through our spaces or things like that. I'm going to go over a little bit of something called a rain garden. So you can put some something that looks like a stream, like a dry stream bed through your yard. There's so many different creative ways to design your yard in a water efficient way. Using drought resistant trees and plants, it seems kind of similar, but there are different plants, trees, shrubs, ground cover. There's all different kinds of plant materials that you can use to design your outside landscape. Adjusting sprinkler heads and fixing leaks. This is one of the easiest things that you can do. So go outside. If you want to, turn on all your sprinklers just for a little bit and just see, observe. Where are your sprinklers spraying water? Are they spraying water on the sidewalk? Well, the sidewalk doesn't need water, of course. Are they spraying, is there an area of your yard that it isn't spraying, perhaps? Or are there any broken sprinklers? And again, we rebate the sprinklers at $4 per head. And then install drip irrigation and add a smart controller. So drip irrigation is a very efficient way to water plants. And so you might have seen it kind of looks like tubing, like brown tubing in certain gardens. And so drip irrigation is designed to bring water directly to the plants and not just spray overhead. So just bringing water and literally dripping it more into the soil around the plant. And it's combined with the smart controller, so again, we'll rebate that at $150. And the smart controllers they should be weather-based. So for the past couple of weeks, we've had rain on and off. So when it's raining, it shouldn't be watering. The controller should have that sensor that it's not going to turn on while it's raining. And then use a broom to clean outdoors. When I was young, I look younger than I am. I'm 34, so I'm not that young. And so I was born in 88, and my dad, often he would go and clean the driveway with a hose, right? That was what he did every single time he mowed the lawn. And we loved it because of the smell. It smelled like it had rained or something on the concrete, me and my sister. But it's not really water efficient to just be, spraying concrete or pavement. So a better thing to do is using the broom, using the push broom to clean everything, or electric blowers to blow everything back onto the grass instead of your driveway. And, setting roller blades to 3 inches. So, cutting the blades, leaving the, grass a little bit taller actually is supposed to be more water efficient. And I just wanted to briefly share, it's not a rebate through City of Redlands, but, the Air Quality Management District, has rebates for, electric blowers and electric mowers. So if you have an old mower that's gas, powered, or you have an old blower that you need to replace, they do ask to have the machinery brought in, and then you'll, purchase the new item, that's an electric blower, electric mower, and they give you rebates, and I think it's like up to $250, it's a pretty good amount. So if you want that contact, I have cards on the back table as well, so feel free to bug me anytime and ask. And then using mulch. Using mulch is one of the biggest suggestions that I hear regularly for different webinars and things. Mulch is basically like ground up, tree material essentially. And so mulch is like having our skin. It protects the soil and it keeps moisture in the soil, and it also, so because it's holding moisture in the soil, you don't need to water things as often. It keeps the soil covered, protected. It also helps prevent weed growing up a little bit better, so mulch is really great. I think it's a beautiful feature to add to. There's different colors if you're interested in having different colored mulch. There's different textures. So I definitely recommend using mulch as much as possible, and it's quite affordable if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot to purchase. Okay, so when Richard invited me, we kind of went over some different topics, and there were a few people in ANCA that had some questions about rain barrels. And so we don't get a lot of rain, so you're not going to get it filled regularly, but rain barrels can be useful. They can be most useful in small garden spaces. I want to say they say about 20 feet out from the barrel is as far as it can water or reach, because it's just going down by gravity. It's just going down on its own. It doesn't have a pump, so you can't have it go for far reaches. So if you have your barrel, it's usually about 50 to 80 gallons on average. If you want to have it by your downspout, connected to your downspout, so that when it does rain, it feeds it right into the barrel. And you do need a screen, so that no mosquitoes go in there and lay eggs. You definitely don't want to have that issue and start a new West Nile virus or something. So that's required by California law. And the water should not be drank. It should not be consumed. It should only be used for outdoor lawn care. And so I can share my presentation. Richard, you have it already, but if you were to click on this image, I linked a video of how to set up and do a DIY setup of your own rain barrel. So I thought the video was really useful, so I linked it. Okay, so I just wanted to recap quickly since we're back here. So again, the rain barrels are great if you're in a rainy area. In our area, it's nice, but it's mostly for smaller garden spaces. Okay, here we go. Alright, so I mentioned earlier for a rain garden, if you had, let's say this whole area was covered in turf all the way to the fence, and they removed some of that turf, which you could apply for your turf removal rebate, and you decided you wanted to do some rain capturing without rain barrels and having to worry about screens and mosquitoes and all the things, you can design what's called a rain garden. So there's mulch all around here as an example. There's some drought tolerant plants around, but really the main feature of this is kind of like a dry stream bed. So when it does rain, ideally you would want to have like your downspout somewhere, or maybe on this side it's feeding it, so that when it rains, it'll trickle down on the rocks and it'll percolate or infiltrate or go down into the soil. So when it's beautiful and rainy, it'll look like a little creek. And when it's not, it just looks like a dry creek or like a nice landscape feature. And so you'll actually be able to be helping the city of Redlands by putting water back into our groundwater system. And of course, you can get a rebate for the turf removal that you do. So the best thing is to use native vegetation. I mean California native vegetation, like on the outside, and then it creates an attractive yard feature, and then it removes runoff from going into the stormwater system, and it's kind of like cleaning and processing water. You know, the rainwater has hit your roof. The roof isn't super clean, and then it goes down this downspout. But as it goes through this little dry creek bed and infiltrates in, it's being cleaned by the rocks, or not cleaned, but filtered essentially by the rocks and the dirt as it goes down. So it's cleaning some of that water. And it reduces flooding and erosion if you're having issues with that on your property. And again, this, I can share this presentation. The image has a link, and then this little highlighted word has a link that has a description. Okay, so how does a rain garden work? So again, you mentioned it does need to be somewhat connected to your downspouts. So you want your downspouts or your rain gutters to be moving water toward the rain garden. And so you have to dig a little bit deep, dig a little kind of like depression into the soil, fill it with some mulch, you can fill it with, they have California native soil, they have common cactus soil, something that has good drainage, to fill into that depression in there, these buttons are so good. There you go. And so you'll fill it, and then you can plant the California natives on top. And again, this water will go down and seep into into this little drain. And then native plants are anything that's native to California. But the other great thing about California native plants, other than the fact that they're used to our climate and they're used to drought, is that they are used to the relationships with pollinators, butterflies, hummingbirds, things that are quite beautiful to look at. And so if you put some of those California native plants that are like the wildflower type, you'll be getting some little visitors in your yard. And again, you can apply for the drought tolerant rebate to do this kind of project. So I don't know about my timing, but I have resources. There's saveourwater.com, that's through the state water, the California Department of Water Resources. There's a Bay Area water agency that has hundreds of landscape webinars. In my downtime at work, that's usually what I do, is I just learn about that. They have so many great resources. And then if you need helpful plant information, the Pasadena Water and Power website, you can create lists, picking plants, and they have really good examples for if you want shrubs, if you want trees, if you want grasses, and so that's a really great website for that. And then if you need any help for gardening, the master gardeners are amazing. I've gotten the privilege to work with them very often throughout my, since 2016, and I really have made friendships with them. You can go to their website, you can call, you can ask a master gardener a question, you can send them a picture of your leaf and say, hey, my leaf is yellow, all my leaves are yellow, what's going on, I don't know, I need help. And they'll actually answer all your questions, they're really knowledgeable, they're volunteers, so there's no cost, and they're fantastic people. And then, the last thing, I also have a raffle to do, so if you have tickets, I'm gonna ask for that, but the last thing I just wanted to share is, obviously, the earth, the air, the land, the water are not inherited from our forefathers, but on loan from our children or from the future, population, so we have to hand them over as they were handed over to us as best we can. So if you have got a blue ticket,